Meanwhile, the Pentagon trying to learn the extent of the damage to Iran's nuclear program after these weekend strikes. The chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff says it is way too early at this point to determine if Iran still has nuclear capabilities. Well, CNN analysis of these satellite photos found that the attack on Fordow, for example, that nuclear facility there, left behind at least 6 large craters. That's where the uranium, highly enriched uranium, is supposed to be stored. They're likely from the US bunker buster bombs, which are designed to go deep, these craters, before detonating underground. The Isfahan nuclear complex, Iran's largest, and where the R&D facilities are, most importantly, was hit by more than a dozen Tomahawk cruise missiles. And now President Trump talking about regime change in Iran. Brian Todd live in Washington with more. Brian.
Right, Becky. The messaging from Washington is so critical in these hours right after those airstrikes on Saturday, and the messaging from President Donald Trump in particular so critical. And this is what the messaging says coming from the president Sunday evening and into this morning. First, as you mentioned, the idea of regime change. The president posting on Truth Social this, quote, "It's not politically correct to use the term regime change, but if the current Iranian regime is unable to make Iran great again, why wouldn't there be a regime change?" And then he put the phrase MEGA for Make Iran Great Again. Now, the president did not specifically say the U.S. would enact regime change in Iran, and 2 of his top aides, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth and J.D. Vance, the vice president, have flat out said on Sunday that that was not the plan. Take a listen.
This mission was not and has not been about regime change. The president authorized a precision operation to neutralize the threats to our national interests posed by the Iranian nuclear program.
Our view has been very clear that we don't want a regime change.
Meanwhile, the president and his top aides are expressing supreme confidence that these airstrikes were successful in at least degrading Iran's nuclear program. And here's what the president said about that late Sunday evening in another post on Truth Social. Quote, "Monumental damage was done to all nuclear sites in Iran as shown by satellite images. Obliteration is an accurate term. The white structure shown is deeply embedded into the rock, with even its roof well below ground level and completely shielded from flame. The biggest damage took place far below ground level," the president wrote, and then he said bullseye with exclamation points. Now, what he's referring to as far as that structure, he's talking about satellite images of a structure inside the Fordow nuclear enrichment site in Iran, which the U.S. struck on Saturday. This is a before image, and there's the after image with those impact craters. The president referring to that white structure, that white building that he says was underneath a lot of rock. And there are the impact craters, presumably from those bunker buster bombs that were dropped. Now, we do have sound clips from from President Trump, from Pete Hegseth, and from the Joint Chiefs of Staff Chairman General Dan Kane. 2 of the 3 of those gentlemen used the term obliterated. Take a listen.
Iran's key nuclear enrichment facilities have been completely and totally obliterated.
Iran's nuclear ambitions have been obliterated.
Final battle damage will take some time, but initial battle damage assessments indicate that all 3 sites sustained extremely severe damage and destruction.
Now, despite the use of the term obliterated and the other expressions of confidence there from those 3 gentlemen, we do have to say that according to our correspondent, our colleague, Katie Bo-Lillis, U.S. officials say it is still too early to have a completely accurate picture of the damage done to those 3 facilities, Fordow, Natanz, and Isfahan. Becky?
Just what do we... Good to have you, Brian. Thank you very much indeed. That is Brian Todd in Washington. CNN correspondent Paula Hancock's joining me now here in Abu Dhabi. So the US trying to assess, what sort of impact was wrought on Iran's nuclear facilities by their weekend strikes. Meantime, the exchange of fire and missiles between Iran and Israel continues apace. What do we know at this point about targets?
Well, what we know from the Israeli side about previous targets that they have hit in Iran, we heard Fred there saying there was a fresh one in the centre of Tehran. They said that overnight they had been targeting airports. They say there were 6 airports that they targeted. They took out some 15 fighter jets and helicopters, which is interesting because Israel has said that they already believe they have aerial superiority across Iran. They're obviously trying to secure that. We know they were also targeting the missile launching sites, the production sites, which they have been doing since day one to make sure that Iran has a lesser ability to be able to retaliate. And they're also saying, one interesting thing, that they still have plenty of objectives, plenty of targets to strike. They are increasing the number of strikes, according to the Chief of Staff, and they are there for as long as is necessary.
So it's clear that mission accomplished, not quite, not yet, as far as Israel is concerned. As you rightly point out, we just heard from Fred Plykin, who's on the ground in Tehran, in Iran, and have just been looking at some of the images from what appears to have been a huge explosion on Sunday, but then just in the past couple of hours, a significant attack on Iran. That seems to have been around the same time as Iran fired missiles at Israel.
That's right. Yes, we don't have a situational assessment yet from the military as to what exactly was hit. It appears as though some did manage to get through. That not all of the missiles were stopped or intercepted by Israel, and this is what we're seeing over recent days. That Israel is not managing to intercept all of these missiles, despite the fact that they have this very sophisticated missile defense system. But the fact is, Israel as a whole is very well set up for this. They have the shelters, they have the air raid sirens, and so they are able to protect their citizens.
Good to have you, Paula. Thank you.